conservative media is taking sides, and this time it's not with Donald Trump. Fox News journalists came to the defense of their White House reporter after the president ripped into Jacqui Heinrich. It all began at Wednesday's press briefing when Heinrich asked a question that seemed to question the legality of Trump's deportation of migrants. That drew sour words from White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt.
Andy McCarthy said in an interview with Hugh Hewitt, he certainly agrees with what the president is trying to do with the Alien Enemies Act, but he's not sure that the law is completely on his side.
We absolutely disagree with the legal opinion of the individual that you mentioned. It is within the president's authority to deport these terrorists. And anybody trying to defend these terrorists who have now been sent off of American soil should talk to the families of the individuals who these heinous monsters have killed.
Trump wasted no time, writing on Truth Social soon after, "I watched Jacqui Heinrich from Fox over the weekend and I thought she was absolutely terrible. She should be working for CNN, not Fox." Not surprisingly, I later found out that she's a fan of the White House Correspondents Association.
Fox News chief political analyst Brit Hume came to his colleague's defense, posting on X, "I watched her too. She plays it straight, covering both sides of a story, and has certainly played fair with you. You may have a case against some White House reporters, but not Jacqui Heinrich." And Fox contributor Guy Benson stood up for Andrew McCarthy, writing, "So Andrew McCarthy is more than capable of defending himself in his legal analysis. I'll just note that Andy spent much of his career putting terrorists in prison and has been frequently/positively cited by Trump himself. He's far from a hysterical terrorist defending leftist."
So this is obviously interesting. Some of the timeline of this is a little confused because that press briefing obviously was not at the weekend, and then Trump's Truth Social was referring to watching Jacqui over the weekend. So who knows if he's referring to that exact exchange or not. What I did find interesting, and to the credit of Brit Hume in particular, was standing up for his colleague. I don't like the president's propensity to target individual journalists or to criticize individual journalists in that way. And I thought that it was, as I say, a credit to Brit Hume and to anyone else who stands up on Jacqui's behalf or behalf of anyone else asking legitimate questions. Briefly on the point about her being, I think the president termed Jacqui Heinrich a fan of the White House Correspondents Association. She's on the board of the White House Correspondents Association, so I would kind of hope she was a fan. I think his grievance there is, in that role, she defended the Associated Press over this kerfuffle about Gulf of Mexico versus Gulf of America and access to the pool. And her argument, which I agree with, is that even very Trump-supporting people cheering that on are in effect giving that power to any president to exclude any member of the pool who they don't like.
Yeah, so I found this to be interesting to an extent.
Don't get too carried away there, Amber.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, okay, she asked a, sort of difficult question. Trump criticized her, which he does with all journalists. And the only peg here is that it's because it's Fox News. I mean, it's not like Fox has been salivating over Trump. I mean,
Well, I've been doing a fair amount of salivating now, to be fair. There have been some legitimate things, but I mean, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham are constantly salivating over Trump.
Right, but they're opinion anchors.
But they're on Fox, though.
Right, but we're talking about the journalism side and the reporters. And I think if you go back to 2020, it was pretty widely reported that the Murdochs did not want Trump to come back into the fold after the January 6th Capitol riot, and they preferred DeSantis in the primary in 2024. So this is not a network that is, I would not describe them as particularly Trumpy outside of their opinion hosts. And keep in mind, they also fired Tucker Carlson a couple of years back. So to me, this is not like a spat with Breitbart, which I think would be more interesting.
I have to push back, Amber. Maybe we just have different opinions or different perspectives. But the idea that Fox News is not particularly Trumpy, I really can't let that go uncontested. I think that the vast majority of Fox's coverage of the president is extremely sympathetic to Trump, irrespective of what the policy issue is. Now, you can argue, and it's certainly valid to bring up the point of 2020, and Murdoch hoped that Trump could be kind of buried at that point. And then we saw in the Dominion case the extent to which Fox essentially sacrificed a commitment to the truth in favor of catering to an audience that was extremely Trump supportive. So I just don't really take the view that it is unfair in some way to describe Fox News as Trumpy. Now, having said all of that, that is why I think there is merit to recognizing people like Jacqui Heinrich for asking what was a fairly pointed question. I've seen Peter Doocy do the same thing, and Brit Hume coming to the defense. And finally, and this is, if anything, a sort of a compliment to Fox, it's interesting to me that someone like Brit Hume will come to his colleagues' defense in that way, while we see organizations in this city that are traditionally much more democratic leaning, including this big law firm, Paul Weiss, who have made this kind of bowing of the knee to Trump, agreeing to do $40 million of pro bono work if he will just take his boot off their necks. So anyway, fair play to Brit Hume.
Yeah, so I would point to anchors like Martha McCallum, Brett Baer, Neil Cavuto, Harris Faulkner, who have certainly criticized Trump on a regular basis and questioned the legality of a lot of the executive orders. And so I think we're doing a conflation of, again, the opinion side and the reporters. The reporters come on during the day, the opinion side primetime hosts are on at night. And those are not the same thing. And I would also point out that after 2020, a lot of Trump supporters fled Fox News because they were unhappy with the call on Arizona, and they were unhappy with their pushback against Trump's claims of widespread election fraud. Newsmax's numbers increased significantly in the aftermath of that exodus. So I don't think it's as clear-cut as you're trying to make it out to be.
I mean, Newsmax's numbers in the aftermath of the 2020 election were boosted, it seems to me, because Newsmax fostered false claims of election fraud. And Fox then, to some extent, followed them down that path and ended up in the Dominion debacle. So I think that it is pretty clear-cut that they're very supportive of Trump as a whole. But
you just provided the opposite, which is that Newsmax was going along with what you say are false claims. I mean, we could debate that on a separate show, but wouldn't it stand to reason then that if Fox was not providing enough support to Trump's claims of election fraud, that would put them on the opposite side of that paradigm? No, because they sacrificed that position, is my point. My point is not that they, to their credit, did not entertain for a short period of time false claims. My point is that they were so concerned about the commercial consequences of being skeptical that they abandoned that skepticism and got into a situation where they ended up having to pay Dominion a vast sum of money to settle a defamation case. I think that's an oversimplification of what happened, because it was specifically three particular individuals, right? It was Tucker Carlson, who actually, it was bizarre that he was even named in that lawsuit, because when he had Sidney Powell on his program, which is the interview that they took issue with, he pushed back on her incredibly aggressively and was not at all willing to blindly substantiate her claims. The other person who was named was Maria Bartiromo, who talked about election fraud, but never on air, as far as I could tell, gave weight to the idea that Dominion voting systems had been hacked or any of the claims that they made in the lawsuit. And the third individual was Laura Ingraham, who maybe flirted with the line a little bit more than the other two. But again, they never even went to trial. They settled out of court, right? So I think taking like those three claims, one of which was completely bogus, with Tucker actually doing the opposite of what Dominion accused him of doing, as indicative of a network-wide shift, is again overly simplistic. I mean, I think we just disagree on that point, because you say, oh, well, they settled out of court. They settled for, what was it, was it $800 million? I mean, it was some colossal sum of money. Now, the idea that you do that as a big corporation because you had an absolutely watertight case and you just decided that it would be easier not to go to court, so let's pay them this huge money. I mean, I just don't accept that. No, they did it because the initial discovery rounds were embarrassing for them. And why were they embarrassing for them? Because they showed some network anchors speaking negatively about executives and other things of that nature. Yeah, but they also showed people broadcasting claims that they knew were false. No, I don't agree with that characterization of what was in those texts. We'll agree to disagree yet again. Just as well we have free speech, but next on Rising, is free speech on campus a thing of the past?